Okay, so this is a quick hit menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle lasts on average 28 days, two phases, follicular and luteal phase. So the follicular phase, we're going to be looking at what happens to the follicle over the first 14 days. And then the luteal phase, what happens after that ovulation. We form a corpus luteum. Now, the hormones involved, what are they? FSH and LH. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Clearly working here, developing the follicle. LH, luteinizing hormone, also working here. Now, both of these hormones are pituitary hormones. They're released from the pituitary in the brain, and they both cause an effect at the ovaries. And we'll take a little look at that later on. Estrogen and progesterone, they are released from the ovaries and they're working at the uterus lining. If you want to be fancy, we can call that the endometrium, but they are released from here and they work here. These are steroid-based hormones. So starting with FSH, we've got a graph showing the hormone levels. We've got one here showing what's happening with the uterus lining. And then we have one here showing what's happening in the ovary. So FSH from day one, this is going to start to rise. That is going to cause the follicle to start to develop. When that follicle starts developing, it will then start to release estrogen. Estrogen levels here you can see start to rise. Now, estrogen is working at the uterus lining. So as that starts to go up, we will see this uterus lining start to thicken and repair. The estrogen levels are causing a positive feedback on FSH. That's going to increase the release of FSH as well as the receptors on the ovaries to be able to pick up that FSH. This is going to help all of this process happen faster. Now, estrogen is dose dependent. When it's at high levels, it's actually going to trigger LH to be released instead. When LH is released around day 14, boom, here we have ovulation. After ovulation, the LH will help this structure here, these cells left over, the wall of the follicle, it will help form that into a corpus luteum, which is then going to play a significant role in the second half of the cycle. LH levels, all explained on this slide here. Onto progesterone, our last hormone, because progesterone is being released from the corpus luteum. We only see progesterone on this side. So at day 14, after ovulation, that corpus luteum is formed, progesterone levels rise. Progesterone is causing, again, the thickening of the uterus lining, maintaining of that uterus lining. We're going to have some estrogen as well released from this guy. Now, these two are inhibiting FSH and LH. We do not want any more follicles developing, any more ovulation. So they will have a negative feedback in inhibiting these two. Now, the corpus luteum doesn't stay forever. It starts to degenerate. It's closing up here. Therefore, no more estrogen and progesterone will be produced. Boom. If we don't have this, menstruation is going to happen because there's nothing to maintain that uterus lining. So here we find ourselves back at day 1, menstruation. Then without this inhibition, we can have FSH levels increase again and the cycle starts over. Hooray. Now, looking at these two graphs, we should be able to identify these different hormones. I would say, boom, LH is the easiest. There's a high peak here ready just before ovulation. Progesterone, this one here, we only see it in the second half of the graph where it's being released from the corpus luteum. Estrogen is the only one that can rise on both sides. It's up here with the progesterone, whereas FSH and LH need to be low during progesterone because they're inhibited. Progesterone levels drop, look which one rises, boom, this is FSH. Now, a little bit more on the, here, summary. Give me a summary. That's what we want. This is our summary. This is what you need to know. Now, on the final page here, I have the essay. Explain how hormones are used to control the human menstrual cycle, 8 marks. Give me one thing each hormone does. Then how does it affect the next hormone? What does the hormone do? How does it affect the next hormone? What does this hormone do? How does it then affect the next hormone? And so on. Okay, bringing in there the positive and negative feedback mechanisms, and here's your quick hit on menstruation.